want a second look.
Yeah, there's something about this one, isn't there? Familiar somehow.
We think we're stuck in a specific fragment in time, and we've been repeating that same fragment over and over again.
But the flirting's over, Sherlock. Daddy's had enough now.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, TV Reviews, Connection of Mine. Star Trek Picard Season 2 has dropped all of its episodes on Paramount+, and this season we focus once again on Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard, tangling once again for the first time in a while with Q, once again played by John Delancey. And Q has brought Picard, as along with the rest of his crew, Seven, Girardi, Rios, others, into a parallel universe where things have gone horribly awry, and it is up to Picard and his crew to fix the timeline and also figure out what is at the end of Q's game. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of Star Trek Picard Season 2. I'm going to try to do my best to be spoiler-free up until I get my letter grade, and then I'll be spoiler-filled after that. So, just so you know, there will be spoilers later on in this review. But first, let's get into some spoiler-free thoughts on Star Trek Picard Season 2. Is it worth seeing? Is it worth the binge watch? Is it a worthy follow-up to Season 1? All these things, I would say... this is where I'm going to have to be a little honest here. I was not a huge fan of Picard Season 1. If you go back and look at all my my episode reactions to Season 1, you'll see that, you know, it was interesting right up until that very last episode where it kind of ruined the whole season for me. And going into this second season, we've had, you know, about a year and a half to kind of sit with that season, and I've really kind of soured on that season in that time. So going into this, I was not really excited to watch what was coming into this season, and quite honest, there were some pleasant surprises, to be sure. There are great elements in this series, in this season for sure. However, there's just so much bad with this episode, this season, in my opinion, that at a certain point, I hate to describe it as kind of hate watching Picard at this point, but that's kind of where I was getting to near the end, just because I gotta tell you, this season is a lot of filler. There's only 10 episodes, however, in my mind, the plot of this season, which, as I said, revolves around Q sending Picard and his crew into an alternate timeline. You know, kind of standard Q stuff for the most part. But there's so much filler in these 10 episodes that if you cut it down to like a 3-hour movie-ish or 2.5-hour movie thereabouts, you would basically miss nothing important in this season. Like, that's how I feel like how much filler there is in the season. And some of the twists that they do, again, no spoilers just yet, but those twists I was not a huge fan of. But before I go too deep into my negatives, let's talk about the positives. Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard, always great to see him. You know, he's doing a good job. I mean, even, you know, 30 years after the original, after the Next Generation debuted, and, you know, 20 years after, almost 20 years exactly after, his last feature film debut, which was Star Trek Nemesis, you know, he's still going strong. I just think it's kind of a shame that it feels like he's sort of, kind of sidelined in his own movie, or his own series. And not that he doesn't have stuff to do, he does, and he has some very important interactions with this, but what interactions he does have, I feel, are somewhat inconsequential, and really the most important contributions he has are speechifying at the end of various episodes, and you know, he did that a lot in The Next Generation too, but I feel like more so in this season. Now, in the trailers, this was revealed that the Borg are going to play a big role in this season, and they do. Specifically, the Borg Queen, which this season is played by Annie Wershing, who is, I believe, the third person to depict the Borg Queen in live actions, following Suzanne Thompson and I forget the second person's name, but as far as the new Borg Queen goes, she is great. She is fantastic in as the Borg Queen in this. I totally buy that she's got this whole, that like you can feel like the venom in her speech as she goes into the poison coming out of it, like she. This is the closest you can get in Star Trek to playing, a snake in Star Trek without being literally a snake at this point. That's how, she nails it. That is excellent. I will say, there's also some time travel stuff going on here, and then, I believe, this was meant to cut down on production costs, so they're, sent back in time to, 2024, so essentially 2022 now. There are some fun little callbacks here that, yes, they are fun. I think they overdo it a bit, but what they do have, all right, fine. That's a little fun to see at the time. But also, there's one person in particular, and I'm not going to say who it is just yet, just because I feel like that's sort of a spoiler. But this person, I was so excited to see them in Star Trek, and they did such an amazing job. Oh my gosh, I loved every scene this person was in. Yeah, fantastic. However, like I said, there's a lot of filler in this season. You could cut it down to 3 hours or less and you wouldn't miss anything. And as with the case with a lot of, time travel stories, you kind of end where you begin sort of things. And much as what a lot of my problems were with the first season of Picard, this season, the first episode sets up a lot of mystery. Like, oh my gosh, what is going on? What does this mean? What does that mean? What is going on? And then by the end of the episode, by the end of the season, yes, you have answers, but they're really kind of, in my opinion, lame answers. And the other answers as well all the other mysteries are kind of inconsequential for the most part. There's good character growth for Picard. There's stuff with Picard dealing with his past that is brought up here. However, like I said, this season, it does not make me that excited to see Picard season 3 just based on this. There's one cameo at the very end that might be a little interesting to see, and knowing that season 3 is going to be, they've announced that season 3 is going to be the last season of Picard. They're limiting themselves to 3, and for the third season, they're bringing back all of the original cast, or as many as they can, of the Next Generation. That's going to be pretty awesome, in theory. However, in this one, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this, and there are things that that people will like, I think, as far as modern Trek goes. But for me, this was a bust overall for me. I would say if I was going to give Star Trek Picard season 2 a letter grade, I would say this is a C-. Like I said, there's some fun elements to this series, to the season, and I'll get into them once I get into announce full spoiler territory here in a second. But overall, yeah, not a great season of television in my opinion. And honestly, season 1 also not a great season for me. So, but your results may vary. So if I'm completely off the mark, let me know in the comments. But now, those are my spoiler-free thoughts on Star Trek Picard. Now let's get into some spoiler talk as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you, and where you may have seen them before. As I said, this season is very much time travel-esque. So we got the 2 quintessential time travel movies of Star Trek franchise here. Very much Star Trek 4, going back in time to fix the problems of the timeline because something bad happened in the past, as well as Star Trek First Contact, not only time travel to save the future, but also Borg involvement the Borg trying to assimilate the past sort of thing. You know, you got all of that stuff. And, you know, you got the Star Trek 4 callbacks are so insane that and out of control that they have the original actor who played the punk on the bus in Star Trek 4 back here, even though, I mean, it's very obvious he's dressing, you know, like a teenage, early 20s punk rock in his probably late 40s, early 50s at this point, and that's kind of embarrassing. Also the fact that, you know, who brings around a boombox in 2024 at this point? I mean, it was fine just in 1980, was that 1986, I think, because, yeah, that's, you know, people walked around with boomboxes at that time, but in 2024, no, that was stupid. That was only there just because of the Star Trek 4 callback, which, again, got a little chuckle, but then but again, that's at a certain point in this series, like, all that was like, oh, look at this callback, oh, look at this callback, hey, it's like, no, I don't care anymore, just get on with it already. Like I said, there's a lot of filler, in my opinion, on that, and but like I said, some of the twists in this one, like some of the answers that we get to are really good. Like Picard going into his backstory, and like I think if you binged all 10 of these episodes back to back, I think the constant flashbacks getting fed piecemeal his backstory would start to get insufferable after a while, just because, I mean, they kind of had to do that just because of the weekly release schedule sort of thing. But this story was still meant to be a complete narrative, kind of like a Stranger Things sort of thing, where you release it all at once and it's one big storyline. That's kind of how I felt like the season was kind of structured. And like, again, love how they his backstory and the answers that we get to it, and how they don't technically contradict anything that was ever spoken about Picard's family in The Next Generation, because, you know, they talk about his mother, like how, you know, we saw his mother all one time in season 1, and that was a hallucination, where it's like, oh, okay, even though, yes, that was a very dark and tragic backstory for Picard's mother, that does not contradict the happy memory that we see in Where No One Has Gone Before. And also, you know, Picard's father, Maurice, again, James Callis, fantastic. Love seeing him, and the man has not aged a day in 20 years, it looks like. I mean, he looks and sounds incredible. And you know, having him as explaining his tragic backstory as well, and how, you know, nothing there contradicts anything that we were told or see in The Next Generation, either from, you know, the episode Family or Tapestry. You know, Tapestry as well is another one that people will very heavily compare Picard season 2 to, because again, the Q kind of teaching Picard a lesson that, you know, I don't want you to die alone in this, or live alone in this world. So there's that parallel to be had as well. So I loved all that, and I love James Callis as Maurice Picard. However, there are a couple of things in this season, once again, that I just can't excuse, because one, once in the past, you know, the La Sirena has crash landed by the Picard homestead, which is abandoned in 2024. They have to transport back and forth a couple times, but the transporter goes in and out with no other reason other than it's convenient to the plot at the time. And it's like, that is so incredibly obvious, that is incredibly distracting. Also, I mean, yes, there's some social commentary on there, and listen, I'm not going to go into that, you know, right or wrong social commentary sort of thing, but as a personal pet peeve, I hate that modern media today has to, if they're going to do social commentary, like, their solution seems to be, all right, let's just stop everything right in the middle of the scene and then speech right at you and say this. It's like, no. It's like, if I wanted a speech right in the middle of this with the social commentary, I'll go read the news. It's like, that's what we have now. It's like there's other ways that you can get across this social commentary and your message other than just stopping the film dead and giving a speech practically breaking the fourth wall at this point. That happened a couple times. And also the tone. Okay, the tone of this season, it is very much in contradiction with itself, because modern Trek, it seems, is very dark. There's some lightness, but there's a lot of dark. It's gritty, and it's supposed to be realistic, and that's fine. And want to grow up Star Trek, that's your prerogative, and you can get some interesting things with it. However, when silly things happen, and then when they just seem so much more out of place that way. Like one example that I just could not condone was when Agnes, the team is at the crew is at this reception for trying to talk to Rene Picard, the astronaut, and they need a distraction. It's like, all right, the lights go down. It's like, all right, fine, you gotta get away in the blackout. Great, but then Agnes starts singing the Shadows of the Night, I think, and great song, and she did a good job, but right down to the fact that everyone's like, no one's questioning this, and there's even a guy on the spotlight who's just like, oh, hey, someone's singing, better swing the spotlight over here. It's like, no, this is dumb. It's like, why would we do this? It's like, it makes no sense in the world that you're trying to create here. It's like, and again, that's kind of tonal dissonance at this point. And finally, there's the one big change that I feel like that has to be addressed, and that is the Borg. I've heard some arguments that this is a good change for the Borg, that Agnes and the Queen have now merged, and now the Borg are going to be, all right, now the collective, because of Agnes's influence on the Queen, now the Borg are going to be searching out willing volunteers to be drones, sort of thing. It's like, so you're completely neutering the Borg? It's like, no. And it's like, yeah, okay, the argument is to evolve the Borg. All right, you can still evolve the Borg and find new layers of things and still have them be villains, still have them be, evil at the sense. Like Voyager, up until the very end, yes, they explored the Borg, and yes, they became slightly less of a threat just because of how often they ran into it and more prepared that the team got to, but they were still a massive threat to the crew of Voyager, and that's then you could still keep them as a threatening, as a antagonistic species. But then by the end, it's like, no, we're going to be provisional members of the Federation now, and let's be friends, and oh no, we're supposed to be happy that Agnes has found her place as the new Borg Queen. It's like, no, this is horrible. Why would anyone want this? And, I mean, part of why I think me coming off is, it seems like I'm just bashing this with no good reason. Let me explain some backstory here. For the last 20 years, CBS has, or Viacom CBS, the CBS publishing division, has maintained a continuity of Star Trek novels. It's not, kind of like how Star Wars did it with their expanded universe canon. For 30 years in between the release of Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, Force Awakens, and they stopped all that with this because Picard, because those novels started, their start points are pretty much right after the last film or TV appearance of each crew. Like, the Next Generation novels start after Star Trek post Star Trek Nemesis. The Voyager novels start off post Endgame. Even Enterprise has had their own continuity of novels dealing with the Romulan War, the Rise of the Federation. That's picked up right after end of season 4. All these things, and they had 20 years to build the canon, and it was all very well done. Like they had it was all interconnected. Like CBS was like, all right, you have to follow, like, these are some events that you just cannot contradict. Like, they are part of the canon, but after that, just go nuts. and continue it. And they did a really good job. I love those books. A lot of people love those books. But then going into Picard, because it is set after Star Trek Nemesis, it would be in direct contradiction with the Star Trek novels. The CBS like, nope, we gotta shut it down. But they knew that because Disney basically just straight out said, nope, 30 years of those novels, none of them are canon. It would just be gone, and we're just going to ignore all of them going forward. And people were so pissed off at that CBS like, no, we gotta have to do something different now. And they did do something different, but it's not better in my opinion, because the way they decided to end it was the Star Trek Coda series, which is a trilogy of books that pretty much ties everything up. And this will be spoilers for the Coda trilogy, so if you haven't read that, this is your fair warning for spoilers on that. Basically, the whole timeline that we've been following for the past 20 years is its own splinter timeline in this multiverse now. And there's a threat to the multiverse that is basically destroying alternate realities and like dominoes essentially. And the only way to save the Prime timeline, because this what was in the 20 years of continuity was a splinter timeline essentially. And the only way to save the Prime timeline is to break off this timeline from the Prime ones, and it will stop the cascade of destruction, kind of like pulling out the last domino before it can go through the rest of the chain. And they have the heroic sacrifice. Everyone's like, oh, we've been fighting against it, but no, we got to accept our fate and do it that way. And so that's the end of the continuity. And it's like, okay, even that, I mean, that's a really tragic and bummer way to go out, but I can at least understand them doing that. But Voyager didn't do that, and Kirsten Beyer, who is a producer on Star Trek Picard, she wrote the Star Trek Voyager continuity, and she ended their line of Star Trek novels with a very much open-ended ending, where it's like, yes, basically the last line, it's like, oh yes, the crew of Voyager embarking on their next mission, and many missions yet to come, essentially. It's like, great, open-ended, but if no more books come, we're happy. This, on the other hand, and I bookmarked it because this is the moment where, they're at the end, Picard is like they're at this place where you can see multiple timelines, and Picard's basically talking with Anish, who we saw in Star Trek Insurrection, and he's basically saying, if nothing else, I'll be happy to know which of the lives I've been seeing are real. Anish looked amused. Therein lies your first lesson, Jean-Luc. They're all real. And then, of course, for the last couple pages, it goes into different points in different Picards in different timelines. It's like, all right, well and good. And then we get to the last page, which is, of course, the Picard as we see in Starship Picard, sitting on the deck in his vineyards, scratching the ear of number one, the dog, and that's how it ends. Like, very obviously, and I think very cynically, saying like, this timeline, it's done. We had a good run, but it's done. Transfer your loyalty to Starship Picard now. That's where the future's gonna lie. It's like, I'm sorry, no, I'm not buying it. So I don't kind of want to rant on that, but that's just kind of the backstory that I had. And I mean, the reason why this kind of annoys me so much is because even Star Wars, the new Star Wars movies and the shows, they're still pulling bits and pieces from the expanded universe, like some characters. They're pulling characters and some story elements and working them into new stories. You could still do that, CBS. CBS could have done pick and choose different elements. Like in the books, they dealt with the Borg so much better than they did in this season. That's what really grinds my gears at this point. Is that they could have taken advantage of that and they didn't. So, I mean, again, sorry to go on the rant, but that's kind of why I am not a huge fan of Star Trek Picard at this point. But rant over. What did you think of Star Trek Picard? Am I in the minority? Am I just crazy at this point? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next TV review, which will be for Marvel's Moon Knight, which I'll be posting shortly, as well as my next movie review, which will be for Top Gun Maverick, which comes out May 27th. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching, but just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.